This is a market recap for March 3rd, 2025. Today, as you can see, we played extremely bearish once again. Um, I think we're possibly going to aim for these lows. Well, if we're going to continue bearish, we're going to aim for these lows. I'll get back to that at the end of this. Now, I was bearish today because of, well, many things. One of them being we had a bullish leg up here. And usually when market goes in one direction, it needs a correction. And for that same reason, here, if we look hourly, this is an hourly fair value gap where price respects it perfectly. So in my mind, yes, this is going down, but it respects a bullish array. So London is bullish, which means New York should see some bearishness. And as you can see today, we saw a lot of it. AM session, we went down for about an hour-ish. We retraced, consolidated for, I don't know why I'm telling you this when you can just see it on a lower time frame. Lunch retraced, and then later half of lunch, we went down and continued down. You can see by this wick here and the top of this wick here that once the algorithm kicked back in, we did seek a little bit of internal liquidity. But once we hit that, we came out to take out this low. Now, the way we fell off this low after sweeping it makes me want to think this is the low of the week, right? Because usually when price sweeps something with the intent to continue it, it closes below it, right? But here we swept it and immediately came back off of it. So could we make a lower low? Absolutely. But this reaction here has me looking bullish, at least near time frame. So like maybe overnight or even tomorrow for New York. Now on the 15-minute, you can see a little easier. Just a retrace here. Doesn't break this low. You saw that 1 hour array that it held. Played bullish off that. Came up here. Meandered around for the beginning of New York pre-market. Then market opened. Price came up, took out these highs, and immediately took off to the downside. Once price took out this low down here and around the macro, actually, we retraced up to around constant encroachment of this bearish move is around this 25% line right there. So we went up and a little bit above that to, I mean, obviously it's 50% of the opening range gap, but I feel like there might be another array there that we are just missing. Closed here. I mean, this is technically a 15-minute, which was respected and reacted here. So it's completely possible that this is an inverse, but not something I feel confident calling. So we hit this retrace off this macro. Then we kind of meander around here for a bit. Boom, lunch occurs. Come up to seek, since AM session was profitable with sells, lunch was seeking buy side liquidity, which is this rally up here. But as you can see, we failed to take out these highs because price is so bearish. So price doesn't sweep buy side, and it just tips over and comes down. Algorithm kicks back in at 130. We went to seek internal buy side liquidity, which is here, this 15-minute fair value gap. Price hits it once here during the macro, reverses twice during the macro, kind of takes it down to this low, and then we immediately come up off of that. So back on the 5-minute, kind of just see everything same. Again, sweep liquidity, and look, we closed. We swept it, immediately fell off of it, and closed under it. So that immediately gave me a signal that we are not looking to continue bullish. Came down, retraced here, 5-minute fair value gap, took off once again, hit the macro, reversed, started retracing. Again, my target for this retrace was this 25% mark right here, which is also the 50% of this whole bearish move here. We hit this, which is kind of our goal. We completed the set of instructions that the algorithm was given for AM sessions, so we did a whole lot of nothing. Lunch kicks in, we take out sell side, and then go to try and take out buy side. But as you can see, this is a 1-minute fair value gap, but it stops us dead at constant encroachment. And then we finally tip over. Macro would allow us to get into the tip of this, come down, taking out AM sessions low, and this low over here. Algorithm kicks back in. If we want to continue AM sessions move bearish, we're going to be seeking internal buy side liquidity, which is right here, and 50% of this bearish leg here is right here, marked, which is why, in my opinion, we did not take off with this return here, but waited for this one. So this macro would have gotten us in again at the very front, and then we came out to take out this low and retraced off of it. 1 minute, we had, obviously, you can see the lack of bullish continuation and the lack of bullish intent after sweeping this to high, as well as an SMT up here. Now, I would have entered this, but when I saw this candle with 15 seconds left, it was at constant encroachment of this, minimum or maximum, right? And so I looked away, I was actually putting on my shirt, and then I turn around and I see price close here and wick up into the ear. I said, crap, the entry's gone, right? So this would have been it. I realistically would have targeted these as fulls, sorry. But my AM session goal was down here, which got hit perfectly with the 10 o'clock news. And off of that, during the macro, we reversed and retraced up to, well, above equilibrium, which is right by this 25%, as you can see what I was talking about. Price did react off of this inverse. I mean, it's small, but this is the upper limit of what price was reacting off of and respecting. Yeah, it's reacting off this one, right? But we have this closure that's above it, and I think this inverse fair value gap, which was validated here, counts. Well, obviously, it does count. How to predict this in the future, I have absolutely no clue. This is more of a thing where you'd have to allow price, if you were short, you'd have to allow price to come up to this because it is there, right? And sometimes, depending on the behavior of price, I'll say, it might go a little higher or a little lower than typical. So we hit that, get an SMT of these highs, causes a retrace to take out this low. Once we take out this low during the macro, we come up at this point. So in my mind, this equilibrium was the goal for AM session. And once we hit that, we hit the retrace and we kind of just boom, instructions out the window, seek and destroy, right? Took out highs on ES, took out lows, took out highs on NQ, took out lows, right? But then lunch kicks back in. We take out the lows, try to take out buy side, right? Because sell side was profitable AM session, so lunch is going to try to take out who was profitable, meaning target these highs. We swept, tried to do that, but got stopped at this fair value gap right here. Price respects consequent encroachment here once, tries one more time, fails, and then tips over. Now, this macro here probably wouldn't have been the biggest fan of. Honestly, not the biggest fan of it, but there's nothing I could have done because, I mean, there's no inefficiencies in there that are clean enough. Price is not clean enough for me to want to take an order block or anything like that. So that's that. And then price comes up here, rejects heavily, right? So in my mind, we're kind of like calm and contained here. We hit consequent encroachment, like we try one more time to get up there, take out these highs, but immediately come down. Once we take out this low and close below it, boom, in my mind, we are bearish at that point. Okay, here's something to think about. Like earlier, or maybe it wasn't earlier, I don't know. We didn't hit equilibrium, but we filled the fair value gap, which is in equilibrium, which equilibrium contains, no, sorry, the fair value gap contains equilibrium. We did not hit the equilibrium, but we hit the fair value gap, right? And if you are seeing price, in my mind, reject off the low, reject off consequent encroachment, try one more time, close at consequent encroachment, and displace lower, shifting market structure down here. You see this expansion, you see this retrace. I'm in here, especially close to the macro. Mind you, my stop would have had to be pretty high. If my entry was there, there's fair value gap here, fair value gap here. My stop would have to go up there, and I'd target those lows and these lows. So it would have hit, and it would have actually been extremely nice to watch. That's actually, what am I talking about? That's actually a very, very good trade. Not too huge, but you know, our goal is not to eat the market, it's to just take what we can get. So this would have been a good trade, but again, the reasons behind it are, one, lunch usually tries to reverse AM session. We tried once, twice, 3 times, all getting stopped at this fair value gap. We get a strong market structure shift to the downside right before the macro. So if you're strictly limiting yourself to entering in the macros, you take this inverse. No, this is just a regular fair value gap. You take this fair value gap. Meh. You could take it. You could manage. I mean, this is 50 right here. With this closure, you could set it there and be like, all right, if it comes back in, I'm in. And then target lows, which happens. And then we get lunch ending. Algorithm kicks back in. If we're wanting to continue AM session, we come up and take out internal buy side once, twice, 3 times. Macro is here. Oh, this is what I was talking about. So here, equilibrium is within this fair value gap, and price comes up into that fair value gap, but does not touch equilibrium. Now, higher time frame, that's exactly what price does on this 15-minute fair value gap. Price comes up, equilibrium is within this 15-minute, but we fail, but we don't displace lower, right? It's in the macro, 1. 2, price isn't too clean. I mean, we didn't really respect this, and it came back up, and there's no inefficiency, so that wouldn't have been nice for an entry. But why does this equilibrium count, but not this one? Anyways, come down one more time, up, tap equilibrium, displace lower, rejecting this fair value gap here, closing below it, returning it to an inverse. Macro is here. There's another inverse here if you're really wanting to enter. If you're itching to enter, this is not an A+ setup, but it is a setup. In my mind, close enough to the macro. We just hit a big retrace and displaced lower. So, it's unlikely for the macro to retrace something that hasn't even displaced. You know what I mean? So, it's just what I'm thinking. And then obviously we displace lower, take out this low over here, and then immediately, boom, come back up off of it. Now, this could just be a simple, power of 3, what the day does. But it also could be signaling that we're not going to go below this low for the week. Something I wanted to talk about with relation to the macros is if it seems, obviously I've seen that price usually reverses and is at its highest point or lowest point during the macro, like here. But when price is expanding or has yet to expand, maybe it acts as like the go juice is what I'll call it, right? Because here we expanded, we retraced. I don't think to equilibrium. No, not to equilibrium, but we hit this, reacted. Macros here. We come up into this fair value gap, and the macro takes us down, right? Now that could also have just been the reverse, right? This is the low, macro starting to retrace. So that could have been it. But this one over here, we displace, retrace, right? So we've already retraced, in my opinion, like the gun is loaded, right? Usually, like possibly here, the macro is loading the gun before it takes off again. But here, it's like the macro is handed a loaded gun and all it has to do is shoot, which it does, right? Boom, it's down. Same here. Retrace, loaded gun, macro, boom, shoots it, right? Just some food for thought. Now, back to this. We look on the daily time frame. We took out this low and didn't close below it. I'm not too concerned on the daily time frame with that happening. I would have liked us to take out this low first, if I'm being completely honest. Maybe ES did. When is this low? Thursday, October 31st. Well, it didn't even take out this low. So, I'm gonna be honest, not 100% sure. But what I do know is my intuition and my gut is telling me that this reaction here with this hourly candle means something, right? I think this means that this is the low of the week and that we won't go lower than that. Will we see some bearish price action tonight? Yes. I mean, in terms of line of defense before this low, we have constant encroachment of this wick. So, is it possible that this is the low of the week? Yes. Is it possible that London sets up New York to continue lower again? Yes. And in which case, I will 100% be bearish. So, we can set up this high time frame, guesstimate of what price will do. But at the end of the day, once that bell hits 9:30, prediction doesn't really matter, and it's how well you can adapt and read what is actively happening in the markets. So, oh, I think I talked about my entry, or would have been entry. But yeah, it was here, missed it because I was late to the markets. Saw this, saw the SMT, was playing bearish. This closed below this too fast, faster than I was expecting. Would have gotten here, took in profits out at 1 to 2, here, here. Right, yeah, I did talk about it. Okay. So yeah, this has been your market review for March 3rd, 2025.